The rain started before she realized she was bleeding. Not heavily, just enough for thin red lines to slide slowly across her knuckles while she stood barefoot in the middle of a Seoul parking garage at 1:13 a.m., staring at the man who had ruined the last 6 months of her life. And the terrifying part was, he looked more heartbroken than she did. "You followed me," Ella's voice came out uneven. "You already knew I would," Dajin said quietly. Below them, the city glowed silver blue through sheets of rain. Neon signs flickered across wet concrete. Somewhere in the distance, tires hissed against flooded streets. "Put the gun down, Ella. Give me a reason." Dajin said nothing at first, just watched her. Black coat soaked through, dark hair dripping into his eyes, breathing too calm for a man standing 3 feet away from a loaded gun, aimed at him, because the gun was in Ella's hand, and she was shaking so badly she almost dropped it. "You lied to me," she whispered. "Yes. About all of it." Something moved in his expression then, not guilt, worse, recognition, like he'd known this moment would happen from the beginning. "Not all of it. If you pull that trigger," he said quietly, "you'll never find out why your brother disappeared." The world stopped, not metaphorically, actually stopped. Even the rain suddenly sounded far away, because Ella had spent 3 years trying to find her brother, 3 years of dead phone numbers, 3 years of police reports, 3 years of pretending her mother's silence at the dinner table didn't slowly rot the walls of their family home from the inside out. And this man, this impossible, unreadable Korean man with whiskey-dark eyes and blood on his sleeve, had just spoken about it like he already knew the answer. Her grip tightened. "What did you say?" "You heard me." "Say it again." Dajin looked at the gun before lifting his gaze back to hers, and smiled, not warmly, not mockingly, just sadly enough to make her chest hurt. That was the first moment Ella Bennett realized something far more dangerous than being hated by a man like Seo Dajin, being loved by him. If you're new here, you've found something different. Subscribe, because this story starts with a missing brother, but that's not what it's really about. It's about the night Ella Bennett accidentally walked up to a stranger's rooftop to complain about loud music and slowly destroyed both their lives. 6 months earlier. The first thing Ella noticed about Seoul was that it never seemed fully asleep. Even at 2 a.m., something was always glowing. A restaurant, a pharmacy, a tiny ramen shop with one exhausted man eating alone beneath fluorescent lights. "You're starring again," Noel said. "I'm observing." "You almost walked into a motorcycle while observing." "That was one time. It happened 20 seconds ago. The motorcycle came out of nowhere." "Ella, it had headlights." Ella rolled her eyes as they dragged their suitcases through the narrow side street toward the apartment building. Rainwater reflected neon signs beneath their feet. A couple argued softly beside a cigarette machine. Someone laughed from an open window above them. Music drifted faintly from somewhere nearby. Everything felt cinematic in the way unfamiliar places always do. Which would have been magical if Ella hadn't been exhausted, underpaid, grieving, emotionally constipated, and one ignored voicemail away from losing her mind completely. "So this is it?" she asked. Noel stopped dramatically in front of the building. "Well," she said, "technically this is Building B. Our apartment is in Building C." Ella blinked slowly. "Noel." "What?" "You told me you found us a luxury apartment." "I said luxury adjacent." "You used the word skyline view." "There is a skyline. That building across the street doesn't count. It lights up at night. So does a gas station." "You're being dramatic." "I left Atlanta for this." "You left Atlanta because you were haunted and needed a fresh start, and I provided that beautifully." Ella laughed despite herself. That was Noel's gift. She could turn emotional collapse into mild inconvenience simply by refusing to panic first. which was probably why Ella agreed to move to Seoul with her in the first place. Not for healing, not for adventure, not even for the photography fellowship she'd barely secured after 2 years of rejection emails. She came because Atlanta had started feeling haunted. Every street reminded her of Micah. Every voicemail from her mother sounded smaller than the last. And every unanswered question kept circling back to the same thing. People do not vanish without leaving something behind. Micah Bennett disappeared 3 years ago. No body, no goodbye, nothing, just silence. And Ella was getting tired of drowning in it. The apartment itself wasn't terrible. Tiny, warm lighting, leaking faucet, questionable plumbing. But the rooftop access almost made up for everything. Almost. "This kitchen is criminal," Ella muttered. "You can cook 1 egg and a prayer in here," Noel said. "The fridge is smaller than my trauma." That actually explains a lot. "I'm serious, Noel. 1 shelf. There is 1 shelf. We'll eat out." "We can't afford to eat out." "Then we'll eat with emotions." "What does that even mean?" "It means ramen and feelings. Very popular combination." Ella snorted, then froze. Music, low, heavy, somewhere above them, not party music. Jazz, old vinyl-type jazz, at 2:47 in the morning. "You hear that?" she asked. Noel looked up. "Oh no." "What?" "That means there's a rooftop smoker." "How do you know?" "People who listen to jazz alone at 3 a.m. are always either heartbreak victims or emotionally unavailable men with expensive watches." That was weirdly specific. "Watch me be right. It's almost 3 a.m., Noel. And yet someone up there has nowhere better to be. Maybe they just like jazz." "Nobody just likes jazz at 3 a.m., Ella. That is called a personality crisis." The music continued. Slow trumpet, soft static, rain against metal railings. For some reason, Ella couldn't stop listening, even after they unpacked. Even after Noel fell asleep face down across the couch. Even after Ella stood alone beside the kitchen sink staring at Seoul through the window, the music was still there, persistent, calm, like whoever played it had nowhere else to be. Something about that irritated her immediately. Because people with nowhere else to be usually had someone waiting for them anyway. At 3:11 a.m., Ella finally snapped. "I'm going upstairs." Noel lifted her head 2 inches. "If he's hot, don't come back." "Go to hell. Bring me ramen." The rooftop door groaned open. Cold air rushed across Ella's skin instantly. Rain misted softly across concrete. And there, leaning against the far railing beside a glowing cigarette, stood the man who would eventually ruin her entire life. Tall, black sweater, dark slacks, one hand inside his pocket. The city lights turned his profile almost unreal. Sharp jaw, broad shoulders, stillness that didn't feel peaceful. Dangerous people always looked calm. That was the first thing Ella noticed about Seoul Diaries. The second thing was that he already knew she was there. "You're loud," she said before she could stop herself. The man turned slowly. Noel was right. Emotionally unavailable men really did come with expensive faces. His gaze moved over her once, not flirtatiously, like assessment. "You came upstairs to complain about jazz," he said, voice low and unhurried. "You came upstairs to smoke in the rain." "I like the rain." "You like jazz at 3 a.m. too, apparently." "Is that a crime?" "It's inconsiderate." "You're the one who came upstairs." A pause, then unexpectedly the corner of his mouth moved, tiny, almost invisible. "You're American," he said. "You say that like a crime." "Depends on the American." "Wow." "Georgia," he said, eyes flicking briefly toward her oversized hoodie. Ella frowned. "How did you?" "The university logo." She looked down. "Right. Okay." That was slightly embarrassing. The stranger took another drag from his cigarette before crushing it beneath his shoe. "You should sleep," he said. "You should lower the music." "It's not loud." It's emotionally loud. That's not a real complaint. It kept me awake, didn't it? You came upstairs, that was your choice. Because your music made it impossible not to. That earned her a real reaction. A short laugh, deep enough to surprise both of them. And suddenly the rooftop didn't feel cold anymore, which should have worried her. Because people don't accidentally become important. It happens slowly. Then all at once. And neither of them knew yet that 3 floors below them, inside apartment 305, someone had just slipped a photograph beneath Ella's door. A photograph of her missing brother, taken in Seoul, 2 weeks earlier. If you're still here, drop a comment below. First time watching, new here. Tell me something. I read every single one. And don't forget to like this video, it helps more than you know. Ella didn't notice the photograph until morning, which made it worse somehow, because that meant someone had walked through their hallway while she slept. Someone had stopped outside her door. Someone had known exactly where to find her. The realization settled into her chest like cold metal. What the hell is that? Noel stood barefoot in the kitchen doorway holding 2 instant coffees and wearing one of Ella's hoodies. Ella couldn't answer immediately. She just stared at the photograph. Micah, her brother, same sharp cheekbones, same small scar beneath his chin from when he crashed his skateboard at 14, same silver chain he never took off, except this picture wasn't old. That was the problem. The timestamp in the bottom corner read, Seoul 11:42 p.m. 2 weeks ago. Ella's stomach dropped. No, she whispered. Noel crossed the room fast after hearing her tone. The second she saw the photograph, her entire face changed. Not dramatically. That was what scared Ella most. Noel stopped joking. Ella. He's here. The words came out fragile, dangerously hopeful, like something she should not trust yet. Noel carefully placed the coffees down. Okay, she said softly. Let's breathe first. I am breathing. You're breathing like somebody being chased in a horror movie. Someone slid this under our door, Noel. I know. While we were sleeping. I know. Someone knew exactly which door. Ella, breathe. Ella stood abruptly and began packing. This doesn't make sense. The police said there were no international records. His passport was never used. His accounts were frozen. How is he here? Noel picked up the photo carefully. There's no note. Which is creepier. Agreed. Who does this? Who just slides a photograph and nothing else? Someone who wants you to find him without telling you how. Or someone who wants me scared. Are you scared? Ella stopped packing. I don't know what I am. Ella grabbed her phone. 3 years and suddenly her hands remembered his number by muscle memory alone. The call failed immediately. Disconnected, of course. Her chest tightened harder. Noel looked toward the front door slowly. Did you lock this last night? Yes. You checked? Yes. A pause. Then, okay, good, because otherwise I was about to become extremely racist against ghosts. Despite everything, Ella barked out a laugh. Short, broken, necessary. Without moments like that, grief became unbearable to carry. Noel sat beside her carefully. Ella. Ella hated that voice. The soft one people used when they thought you might fall apart any second. I'm fine. You're holding the photo like you're trying to crawl inside it. I just need to think. Okay, think out loud, I'm here. Silence. Rain tapped lightly against the windows. Down below, Seoul was already awake. Delivery scooters, crosswalk beeps, distant train sounds. The world continued like normal while Ella's entire reality tilted sideways. And underneath all of it, another thought kept pressing at the back of her mind. Seo Dajin, because something about him felt wrong now. Not dangerous wrong, connected wrong. The timing, the rooftop, the way he watched people like he already knew things they hadn't said yet. Her brain tried to reject it immediately. You are spiraling. One mysterious, attractive man does not equal conspiracy. Except she remembered what he said last night. You should sleep. Not you should get some rest. Not it's late, go inside, you should sleep, like he already knew she wouldn't. You're doing the thing again, Noel said. What thing? The FBI murderboard thing with your face. I do not have an FBI face. You absolutely do. Your eyes go all still and your jaw does that thing. My jaw doesn't do a thing. It's doing the thing right now. Ella rubbed her forehead hard. I need air. You need food. I need both. Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you specifically. The convenience store downstairs smelled like ramen broth and coffee. Tiny heaters hummed near the windows while exhausted office workers drifted in and out beneath fluorescent lights. Ella stood frozen beside the drink fridge, still staring at the photograph on her phone. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks. Micah looked thinner, older, wearing black, but alive, God, alive. You're crushing the banana milk. Ella blinked. C.O. Dodgen stood at the end of the aisle wearing a black wool coat and holding an umbrella still wet from rain. Of course he did, because apparently this man materialized whenever her emotional stability cracked. Her pulse reacted instantly and annoyingly. What are you doing here? She asked. I live here. In the convenience store. In the building. Right. Dodgen's eyes moved once over her face. Sharp, quiet, observant. You've been crying. Direct, no hesitation. Ella immediately hated how exposed she felt around him. I'm fine. People say that when they're the least fine. You always diagnose strangers you just met. Yes. That's a terrible habit. It's an accurate one. That should not have been attractive. It absolutely was. Noel appeared suddenly beside Ella carrying ramen cups. Oh my God, she whispered loudly. Jazz rooftop man. Dodgen looked mildly confused. Noel, Ella warned. What? I support your journey. There is no journey. There's always a journey. Amusement flickered briefly across Dodgen's face. Traitor. Noel held out a hand dramatically. Noel Carter, I've heard absolutely nothing about you except your music choices. C.O. Dodgen, he said. Wow, Noel sighed. That's a devastatingly handsome name. Ella closed her eyes briefly. I'm moving out. You can't afford to. Fair point. Dodgen looked between them once before his gaze settled back on Ella. You should eat, he said. I came downstairs for food, she said defensively. You came downstairs carrying grief and a dangerous caffeine situation. Noel gasped softly. Oh, he reads people. I hate both of you. The cashier called out something from behind the counter. Dodgen answered fluently in Korean. Low voice, effortless, calm authority. The older cashier immediately smiled. Something strange pulled low in Ella's stomach watching that happen. Not attraction exactly. Not yet, more like curiosity with a pulse. Then Dodgen turned back toward her and saw the photograph in her hand. Everything changed instantly. It happened fast, too fast for someone untrained to notice. But Ella noticed. The stillness. The tiny pause. The way his eyes sharpened for half a second. Recognition. Her heartbeat stumbled. Dodgen recovered immediately, too immediately, but it was already too late, because now she knew. C.O. Dodgen had seen Micah before. Ella moved before she could think. What was that? The question sliced through the tiny convenience store. Behind them, the ramen machine hissed softly. A delivery bell chimed near the counter. Outside, rain dragged silver streaks down the windows. But inside Ella's chest, everything tightened. Dodgen didn't blink. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Ella. You recognized him. She held up the photograph. This man, you recognized him. Noel slowly lowered her ramen cup. Oh, she muttered. This just became extremely not fun. Dodgen's expression remained unreadable. Your brother. Yes, my brother. Ella's voice sharpened. The one you clearly know. I never said that. You didn't have to. You're making assumptions. I'm making observations. There's a difference. A dangerous silence settled between them. Not loud, worse, controlled. The cashier glanced up nervously before pretending not to listen. Dajin looked at Ella for a long moment, then, not here. Every nerve in her body reacted. Not denial, not confusion, not I've never seen him, not here. Her pulse kicked harder. You do know him. Ella, Noel said carefully, maybe lower your voice before this becomes a Netflix documentary. I don't care. But she did care, because suddenly she was aware of strangers nearby, surveillance cameras, her shaking hands, and the fact that this man still looked terrifyingly calm. Dajin stepped closer, not aggressively, quietly, but his presence hit like sudden gravity anyway. You're upset right now, he said evenly. You think, and if we continue this conversation out here, you'll regret it. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Fear brushed briefly across her spine, not fear of him hurting her, fear that he was right, that whatever this was, it was bigger than she understood yet. Noel spoke first. Okay, new rule, nobody says cryptic sentences before I've finished my ramen. The corner of Dajin's mouth moved slightly. Ella hated that she noticed. I'm not going anywhere with you, she snapped. You already live upstairs from me. Annoyingly valid, that's not the point. No, he said quietly, it is. Something shifted underneath the words, something heavier. And suddenly Ella noticed another detail. Dajin looked tired, not physically, emotionally tired, like someone carrying something he'd been carrying too long. The realization softened her anger for exactly 2 seconds before she crushed it. Absolutely not. Attractive, tired men were still dangerous. 5 minutes, she said. Ella Noel blinked. You're staying with me, Ella clarified quickly. Oh, absolutely. I watch crime documentaries. I know exactly how this goes. Dajin picked up their untouched basket of food before either woman could stop him. I'm paying, he said. No, you're not. I already did. Ella stared. How the cashier awkwardly held up the receipt, traitor. The rooftop looked different in daylight, less cinematic, more honest. Gray skis stretched over tangled buildings while damp wind swept across the concrete. The jazz was gone now. Only silence remained, and somehow that felt more dangerous. Dajin set the convenience store bag down beside the bench. Noel immediately opened ramen like this was a hostage negotiation with catering. Ella stayed standing. You have exactly 5 minutes, she said. Dajin leaned lightly against the railing, still calm, still impossible to read. I saw your brother 4 months ago, he said. Everything inside her stopped. Noel slowly lowered her chopsticks. What? Ella's voice barely worked. Where? In Busan. Her lungs tightened instantly. Doing what? I don't know. Bullshit. Dajin's gaze lifted to her steadily. He approached me first. The wind suddenly felt freezing. He knew your name, Ella whispered. Yes. How? I didn't ask. You ask. No. Someone walks up to you and knows your name and you just, what? You just let that go. I had reasons not to ask. What reasons? The kind I can't explain on a rooftop. Emotion cracked through her voice. Because how could someone say that casually? How could someone meet a missing man, a vanished brother, and not ask questions? Dajin remained infuriatingly composed. He asked for information. What kind? A location. Where? Somewhere safe. Safe from what? Silence, oh God. He was running from someone, Ella realized. Dajin said nothing, which was answer enough. Noel sat forward slowly, humor completely gone. Okay, I officially hate this conversation. Ella's thoughts spiraled. Micah in Busan, Micah alive, Micah hiding, not kidnapped, not dead, hiding. A strange grief hit her then, because part of her had spent 3 years mourning him already, and now suddenly she didn't know what she was grieving anymore. You could have told me sooner, she said. Dajin's eyes sharpened slightly. I met you less than 12 hours ago. You knew my brother was missing. I knew your brother wanted to disappear. That landed like a slap. No, Ella said immediately. Micah would never leave us willingly. Are you certain? Wouldn't he? The thought arrived ugly and unwanted, because the last year before he disappeared he had changed, more withdrawn, paranoid, restless, always checking over his shoulder. Their mother noticed too. Nobody talked about it directly. Families often confuse silence with protection. What exactly did he ask you for? Ella pressed. Dajin looked away briefly toward the skyline, and for the first time since meeting him she saw hesitation, real hesitation. He wanted access to a building, he said. Something cold slid slowly down her spine. What building? His answer came immediately. Mine. Silence. Noel blinked. Okay, I need stronger noodles for this. Ella stared at him. You're telling me my missing brother somehow knew you? Yes. And wanted access to your building? Yes. Why? Dajin's jaw tightened slightly. There are people in Seoul who disappear differently than others. What does that mean? It means some disappearances are chosen, some are arranged, and some, he paused, some are warnings. The sentence hung there, heavy, wrong, incomplete. She still knew absolutely nothing about Seo Dajin, not his work, not his life, not why danger seemed to follow him like smoke. Only this: Micah had trusted him enough to seek him out, which terrified her more than if he hadn't. You're leaving things out, she said. Yes. A lot of things. Yes. That's not good enough. I know. At least he admitted it. The honesty landed harder than denial would have. Noel pointed her chopsticks between them. Okay, as the only mentally stable person here. You cried because a moth landed on you yesterday, Ella said flatly. The moth was aggressive. Dajin looked down briefly. There, again, that tiny almost smile. And suddenly Ella understood something dangerous. He barely reacted outwardly, which made every small reaction feel like something you earned. Look, Noel continued, either this man is secretly a mafia boss. Dajin remained silent. Noel slowly lowered the chopsticks. Oh my God. He's not in the mafia, Ella said quickly. How do you know? I don't. Exactly. I run a private intelligence company, Dajin said finally. That sounded somehow worse. Ella crossed her arms. What does that even mean? It means governments hire him when they want morally questionable things handled legally, Noel muttered. Both of them looked at her. What? I watch documentaries. Dajin's phone buzzed. His attention shifted instantly, not casually, sharply. He checked the screen once, something in his face cooled. I have to go, he said. No, Ella said immediately. The word surprised even her. Dajin paused, and for one strange second something warm flickered beneath all that composure, like he hadn't expected her to stop him. You don't get to drop all this on me and then just leave, she continued. I'm not disappearing. You literally just said you're leaving. I said I have to work. That's suspiciously vague. It's intentionally vague. Are you coming back? Yes. Tonight? Yes. You promise? Something shifted briefly across his face, like the word promise meant something heavier to him than it should. 7 o'clock, he said. That wasn't a question. No. Infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. And somehow, underneath the frustration, Ella could feel the dangerous beginning of anticipation, which made her even angrier. Dajin picked up the empty coffee cups beside the bench before heading toward the rooftop exit. Tiny detail. Tiny stupid detail. But people revealed themselves in their habits. And something about a dangerous-looking man quietly cleaning up after everyone hit her somewhere she wasn't ready for. Right before he reached the door, Ella spoke again. What happened to Micah? The rooftop stilled. Dajin turned slowly, and for the first time since meeting him she saw something close to regret move through his eyes. Not guilt, regret. "I don't know," he said quietly. This time she believed him, which scared her more than the lies. By evening, Seoul looked entirely different. Rain gave way to cold neon reflections and crowded sidewalks glowing beneath signs Ella still struggled to read quickly. Everything smelled like coffee and street food and cigarette smoke and cold winter air. The city breathed around her, alive, restless, beautiful, and Ella hated that Micah had apparently experienced all of this without her. "You've been staring at that text for 10 minutes, Noel said. "I'm thinking." "You're catastrophizing." "I'm doing both simultaneously." "What did it say?" "Come downstairs, that's it. No context, no punctuation, no human warmth." "Psychopath behavior." "That's what I said." "You're still going though," Noel observed. Ella grabbed her coat aggressively. "I'm going because my brother is involved. Not because he's attractive.
Absolutely.
He's actually annoying."
Ella?
"What?"
Girl, you changed outfit 3 times.
"Traitor." The elevator ride downstairs felt strangely long. Her pulse kept doing deeply embarrassing things the closer she got to the lobby. This was ridiculous. She was a grown woman, a photographer, intelligent, mostly. And yet somehow one emotionally unavailable Korean man with dangerous eye contact had destabilized her nervous system in under 24 hours. Humiliating. The lobby doors opened, and there he was, waiting beside the entrance like the human embodiment of expensive problems. Black coat, dark turtleneck, hands in pockets. Stillness wrapped around him differently tonight, less relaxed, sharper somehow, like he was listening for something invisible. The second he saw her, his attention shifted, fully, completely. "You're late," he said. "It's been 1 minute." "You walk slowly." "You're irritating." A pause, then quietly, "You look nice." Her brain stopped for a full second. "Because he said it the way you say something you've been sitting on too long. No performance, no smirk, no arrogance, just truth. And somehow that was infinitely worse." Heat rushed instantly into her cheeks. Dajin opened the passenger side door of a black car waiting outside. Ella stopped. Absolutely not. She looked at the car, then him, then the car again. "No," she said. "No. I watch enough true crime to know this is how women disappear. You already live in my building. That keeps becoming less comforting. Get in the car, Ella. Say please." The briefest pause, "Please." For the first time, Dajin laughed properly. Low, brief, dangerously attractive. The sound did something physical to her heartbeat. Noel had been right. There was absolutely a journey. The inside of Dajin's car smelled like cedarwood and cold air. Clean, minimal, expensive enough to make Ella suddenly aware of the hole in one of her socks. She tucked her feet under the seat immediately. Beside her, Dajin drove through Seoul traffic with one hand resting lightly on the wheel, completely unbothered by the chaos outside. Meanwhile, Ella was internally fighting for her life, because silence with attractive people operated differently. Every tiny movement became loud. The flex of his wrist turning corners, the low hum of jazz through the speakers, the city lights sliding across his jawline. Annoying, very annoying. "You always kidnap women this quietly?" she asked. "I offered you several chances to leave." "That's exactly what kidnappers say." A pause, then, "You accepted anyway." "I accepted because my brother is missing, and you're the only lead I have." "Is that the only reason?" Her stomach did a small, embarrassing thing. She looked out the window immediately. Dajin turned down a narrow side street lined with old brick buildings and tiny glowing restaurants tucked beneath apartment complexes. Not tourist Seoul, real Seoul. Laundry hanging from balconies. Scooters squeezed beside staircases. An old woman watering plants outside a flower shop despite the cold. Something about it immediately softened Ella's chest. It's pretty here, she admitted quietly. Different from what you expected. I don't know what I expected. Most people expect the version they saw online. And what's this version? Dajin glanced at her briefly. The real one. You noticed details, he added after a moment. I'm a photographer. The restaurant was tiny, only 6 tables, soft jazz, steam rising from soup bowls. A sleepy cat occupied one entire chair near the counter like a rent-paying customer. Oh my God, Ella whispered instantly. The cat blinked slowly at her. Dajin pulled out her chair, smooth, automatic, old-fashioned enough to surprise her. You're weirdly gentlemanly for someone who feels vaguely illegal, she said while sitting. I'll take that as a compliment. The older woman running the restaurant approached immediately. The second she saw Dajin, her face softened. So he came here often. Interesting. The woman spoke rapidly in Korean before noticing Ella. Then very deliberately she looked between them. Once, twice, and smiled. Oh no, Dajin answered calmly while removing his coat. The woman laughed softly. What did she say? Ella asked. She asked if you were my girlfriend. Ella nearly inhaled water. And what did you say? That you're too suspicious of me to date me. That's accurate. I know. It wasn't a compliment. I know that too. The worst part, he didn't seem bothered at all. The old woman returned moments later with tea neither of them ordered. Ella said carefully, Okay, either you're secretly beloved by old women or you're in the mafia. I'm not in the mafia. Still not comforting. Would you like me to be more comforting? I'd like you to be more honest. Something flickered briefly in his expression. Those are sometimes the same thing. A tiny silence settled, comfortable this time, and that was somehow more dangerous than tension, because tension at least kept people alert. Comfort slipped past defenses quietly. The cat jumped onto the empty seat beside Ella. Without hesitating, she reached down to scratch its head. Dajin watched her. You like things that trust selectively, he said. That sounded psychologically loaded. It was. Are you analyzing me again? I never stopped. The cat climbed halfway into her lap. Traitor number 3. You know, Ella muttered, for somebody emotionally repressed, you observe people constantly. You're easy to observe. Absolutely not. Her pride rejected that instantly. I am not easy to read. Dajin reached for his tea calmly. You over-explain when you're nervous. I do not. You touch your necklace when you're overwhelmed. Her fingers immediately dropped away from the chain at her throat. Traitor body. And, he continued smoothly, you use sarcasm to sidestep the moments that actually matter. Ella narrowed her eyes. You profiling me right now. Yes. That's incredibly rude. You didn't stop me. I'm stopping you now. Too late, I'm already done. The tiniest flicker of amusement crossed his face. That expression was becoming a problem, because every time he smiled, rarely, briefly, it felt like something you worked for, which made her want to cause it again. Dangerous, very dangerous. The old woman called something toward Dajin from the kitchen. He answered in Korean without looking away from Ella. The woman laughed loudly. Oh no, Ella said immediately. What was that? Nothing. Liar. She asked if I finally made a friend. Something unexpectedly soft moved through her chest. You don't have many friends, do you? I prefer quiet. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. And somehow that said everything. The restaurant emptied slowly until only the 3 of them remained, Ella, Dajin, and the cat emotionally manipulating everyone for free food. Your brother came here once, he said. Everything inside Ella tightened. There it was, the shift. When? About 3 months ago. Her fingers curled slowly around the warm teacup. Was he alone? Yes. Did he seem okay? Dajin hesitated, tiny but enough. No. Her chest ached immediately. How bad? He looked tired, not physically. The way Dodgen said it made her understand instantly. Micah had looked afraid. Ella stared down at the table. He used to come into my room during thunderstorms, she said suddenly. The memory slipped out before she could stop it. Dodgen stayed quiet, listening. He was older than me, but storms freaked him out. He'd pretend he was checking on me, but really, she smiled faintly. He just hated lightning. Did he know you knew? Probably. We never said it out loud. Why not? Because some things are kinder left unspoken. A strange softness entered Dodgen's expression. Not pity, something quieter, more dangerous, understanding. He talked about you, Dodgen said. Her heart stopped. What? He said you took photos of things people walked past. Emotion climbed sharply into her throat, because that was exactly the kind of thing Micah would say. Not achievements, not career stuff, the small human thing. He remembered your camera before anything else, Dodgen added quietly. The restaurant blurred briefly, not from tears, from pressure, from hearing proof that Micah had still been thinking about her from somewhere across the world. He missed you, Dodgen said. That did it. Ella looked away immediately, because grief was one thing, hope was worse. Hope reopened wounds. And sitting there beneath warm restaurant lights beside the one man connected to her missing brother, Ella realized something terrifying. She was already starting to need him. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet. Ride home was quieter, not awkward, heavy, the kind of silence where both people are thinking too much to speak. Rain slid across the windshield while Seoul blurred outside in neon and wet reflections. Ella sat angled slightly toward the window. You really think Micah in danger, she said quietly. Not a question, a quiet fact. Dodgen didn't answer immediately. Outside, a motorcycle sped through the rain before disappearing into traffic. Finally, your brother got too close to people who don't forgive mistakes. Cold moved slowly through her chest. And you? She asked carefully. His eyes stayed on the road. What about me? Are you one of those people? The car went quiet, not tense, worse, measured. Dodgen stopped at a red light and looked at her fully for the first time since leaving the restaurant. Streetlights spilled gold across one side of his face while the rest stayed hidden in shadow. Light and dark, always both. Yes, he said softly. No hesitation, no fake modesty, just truth. Ella's heartbeat stumbled because somehow that honesty hit harder than lying would have. The light changed. The car moved again. Neither spoke for almost a full minute. Then, you should probably be more afraid of me than you currently are, Dodgen said calmly. Maybe I'm very good at hiding fear. You're not. How would you know? Because I've been watching you all evening. Her stomach flipped, because the terrifying part was she knew he meant it. And still, she wasn't afraid. That should have been a red flag. Instead, it felt like standing too close to the edge of something and realizing part of you wanted to jump just to know what falling felt like. You know what your problem is, Ella muttered. Dodgen glanced at her briefly. I suspect you're about to tell me. You say devastating things with the energy of someone discussing the weather. A tiny breath of laughter escaped him. Real, warm, gone almost immediately. Rain softened outside as they pulled into the apartment garage. The moment the engine turned off, the atmosphere shifted. Closer now. Quieter. No restaurant sounds. No city noise, just breathing. Ella became suddenly aware of his shoulder beside hers, the low jazz still playing softly through the speakers, the fact that she didn't actually want to leave yet. Dangerous realization. Dodgen turned slightly toward her. Ella. Her pulse reacted to her name in his voice. What? A pause, then, don't go looking into this alone. There was something different in his tone. Not a command. Concern. Real concern. And somehow that affected her more than the mystery itself. Why do you care? She asked quietly. The question landed heavier than she meant it. Dajin went still. For the first time since meeting him, truly still. Like she'd accidentally touched something exposed underneath all the control. Outside, distant thunder rolled softly over Seoul. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "That's not reassuring." "No. But it's honest." "Yes." The answer hit like a bruise because it sounded painfully honest. Not polished, not seductive, just true. And Ella suddenly realized something terrifying. Whatever this was between them, it wasn't one-sided anymore. A notification buzzed across her phone. The sharp sound shattered the moment instantly. Ella looked down. Unknown number. A photo attachment. Her stomach tightened immediately. Slowly she opened it, then stopped breathing. The picture showed her, taken tonight, inside Dajin's car, and beneath the image only one sentence appeared: "He can't protect you either." For one full second, Ella genuinely forgot how to breathe. Her inside Dajin's car, taken tonight. Someone had been close enough to see her face clearly through the window, which meant someone had been watching them. Dajin noticed instantly. "What is it?" His voice changed, sharper now, dangerously focused. Ella turned the screen toward him silently. The second he saw the message, something terrifying happened. He became completely emotionless, not calm, absent, like every human reaction shut off at once. "Who sent this?" he asked. "Unknown number." "When did it come in?" "Just now." "Did you click anything else in the message?" "No, just open the photo." He was already moving, phone out, typing rapidly, eyes colder than she'd ever seen them. The warmth from dinner evaporated completely. No more almost smiles, no more dry humor, only precision. "What's happening?" Ella whispered. He dialed Kang. A pause. "I need a trace on an incoming number. Immediate priority." Another pause. "No, now." The line disconnected. Ella stared at him. This man wasn't just dangerous. He was powerful, not rich guy powerful, operationally powerful. People obeyed him instantly. Dajin zoomed in on the image carefully. His jaw tightened. "What?" Ella asked. "The angle." "What about it?" He looked toward the garage entrance. They were close. Cold swept through her immediately. How close? Less than 20 meters. Her breathing started climbing. Someone inside the building. Someone close enough to watch her, follow her, know where she lived, know she was with Dajin. A second notification buzzed. Both of them looked down instantly. Another message. "Don't make him choose between you and the job." Dajin went utterly still. Not one movement, not one blink. And Ella realized with horrifying clarity that message wasn't for her. It was for him. "Dajin." He exited the car immediately. "Stay inside." "Excuse me." But he was already scanning the garage, every movement precise, measured, predatory. He looked like someone built for situations like this, which was not reassuring. Her pulse hammered violently. This wasn't theoretical danger anymore. Someone had physically followed them. The passenger door opened suddenly. Ella nearly jumped out of her skin. Dajin crouched beside the seat. "We're going upstairs," he said. "What's happening?" "You're staying with me tonight." "Not romantically, protectively. I can stay with Noel." "No." "Why not?" "Because whoever sent that already knows which floor you're on." "Dajin." "Ella," his voice lowered carefully, "listen to me right now." Something in his face made her chest tighten. Not fear, urgency, real urgency. Whoever sent those messages already has your information, which means they either followed you physically or accessed something digital. Her stomach dropped. "My phone." "Possibly." "What about my apartment?" "I don't know yet." Another realization hit her suddenly. Noel. Dajin's expression shifted immediately. He pulled out his phone. "Call her." Ella obeyed. One ring, two, three, hello. Noel answered loudly over background noise. Ella nearly collapsed with relief. "Where are you?" "Getting fried chicken." A pause. Why do you sound like you witnessed a murder? Go upstairs right now and lock the door. No questions, just do it. Noel's tone changed immediately. Okay, the line disconnected. Silence returned. Dajin held the passenger door open. Come on. This time Ella listened without arguing, because fear changes people quickly. The elevator ride upstairs felt endless. Neither spoke. Only the soft mechanical hum of the lift while Ella stood beside him trying not to spiral. But spiraling was difficult to avoid when your missing brother was connected to dangerous people. Someone was actively watching you, and the only person protecting you openly admitted you should fear him too. The elevator doors opened. Penthouse level. Dajin's apartment looked exactly like she'd imagined. Beautiful, minimal, cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul in silver rain-soaked light while soft jazz played somewhere deeper inside the space. Of course it did. The man literally lived inside cinematography. You can take the bedroom, he said immediately. You don't have to. You're taking the bedroom. Where will you sleep? I won't. She stared at him. You won't sleep. Someone needs to watch the door. Dajin. Take the bedroom, Ella. Ella stepped inside slowly. Something about being here felt strangely intimate, not because of romance, because homes revealed truths people didn't. Books stacked precisely beside the couch, vinyl records, expensive whiskey untouched on the counter, a chessboard mid-game. One single photograph faced on near the bookshelf. Interesting. Dajin locked the apartment door behind them. 3 separate locks. You live like somebody expecting enemies, Ella said. I do have enemies. How many? Enough. That's not a number. No, it is. Casual, completely casual. Ella stared at him. Who are you? The question lingered heavily between them. Dajin loosened his coat slowly before meeting her gaze, and quietly, almost tiredly, he said, That's the problem. Then her eyes caught it again, the photograph on the shelf, face down, still face down. Whose picture is that? She asked. Dajin's attention shifted instantly. Tiny pause, hesitation. No one important. Lie, people didn't keep unimportant photographs face down. Ella stepped closer toward the shelf instinctively. Dajin moved immediately, not aggressive, fast, suddenly standing between her and the photograph. The atmosphere changed instantly. Her pulse reacted hard to the sudden proximity. Too close. Way too close. Okay, Ella said slowly. That was extremely suspicious. Dajin's jaw tightened slightly. Drop it. Is it someone you loved? Drop it. Someone who hurt you. Ella. Someone connected to Micah. Not loud, which somehow made it heavier. Ella looked up at him, really looked. Seo Dajin wasn't afraid often, but this mattered. What's on the photo? Nothing involving you. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. And suddenly Ella understood why his rare moments of softness hit so hard, because he guarded himself constantly. Before either could say anything else, his phone rang. Kang, silence, then, send it. His face darkened while reading whatever appeared on the screen. What? Ella asked. Dajin looked up slowly. They traced the number. And a pause, then quietly, it came from inside your apartment building. Cold swept violently through her body. That's impossible. It's not. Someone in this building sent that. Yes. Someone who lives here. Or someone who was let in. Someone inside the building. Someone close enough to watch her, follow her, know where she lived, know she was with Dajin. The walls suddenly felt too thin. Dajin noticed instantly. Ella, I can't. Look at me. His voice cut through the panic sharply. Her eyes lifted automatically. And there it was again, that terrifying calm. Only this time, instead of feeling cold, it grounded her. Breathe slowly, he said steadily. In through your nose. She obeyed before realizing she was obeying. Again, another breath. Her pulse still hammered, but the room stopped spinning slightly, and somehow Dajin's calm became the safest thing in the room. "There you go," he said quietly once her breathing steadied. Nobody had spoken to her that gently in a long time, not since Micah. The realization stung. Dajin noticed, because of course he did. "He talked about you constantly," Dajin admitted quietly. Her throat tightened immediately. What did he say? Something almost conflicted moved across Dajin's face. "He said you made places feel less lonely." Emotion hit so suddenly Ella had to sit down, because that sounded exactly like Micah. Exactly. She laughed once softly through the ache in her chest. "He used to say weird, sentimental things right before stealing my food." Dajin watched her carefully. "He was funny," he said. "He was the funniest person I knew." Past tense. The word landed heavily between them. A tiny silence followed. "You think he's dead," she said. "Not accusation, recognition." Dajin looked toward the rain-streaked windows, and for the first time since meeting him he looked uncertain, not professionally, personally. "I think," he said slowly, "your brother knew something people kill for." "And did someone kill him for it?" The room went still. Then Ella whispered the question neither of them wanted answered. "Would you kill for it?" Dajin looked at her fully. No walls, no deflection, no dry humor, just truth. "Yes." "Have you?" Silence. "Dajin." "Yes." And somehow that honesty scared her less than the fact she still trusted him anyway. Rain rolled softly down the windows while the city glowed beneath low clouds. Then Ella noticed it again. The photograph, still face down, still guarded, still bothering her. "You know," she said slowly, "the more you protect that photo, the more my imagination invents." Dajin loosened the cuffs of his sleeves calmly. "That sounds like a personal problem." "You're evil." "I've been told worse." "I'm serious." "So am I." Her eyes narrowed. "Fine, I'll figure it out myself." Something dangerous flickered briefly across his face, gone almost immediately, but she saw it. "If you're invested in these two, subscribe, because what's coming in is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. And leave me a comment. What are you feeling about Dajin right now? Trust him? Suspicious? Both. Tell me everything." Ella wasn't sure when the adrenaline finally faded enough for exhaustion to take over. One moment she was sitting on the couch staring at rain against the penthouse windows while the distant sound of Dajin moving through the apartment felt strangely grounding. The next, soft jazz, and the faint smell of cedarwood, and the uncomfortable realization that someone had covered her with a blanket while she slept. A large one, soft, smelled like him. She didn't move immediately, because the night came back all at once. Micah, the photograph, the messages, the number traced to this building. Her chest tightened, but before the spiral could fully take hold, footsteps. Then the red emergency lights flickered on. Then 3 slow knocks hit the penthouse door. Ella's entire body went rigid. Nobody spoke. Another knock, calm, patient, like whoever stood outside already knew they were inside. Dajin moved instantly, gun in hand. He crossed toward her and moved her farther behind him. Protective instinct, automatic. The gesture hit her emotionally even through the fear. A voice came through the door, male, smooth, familiar in a way that made no sense. "Seo Dajin." Dajin went completely still, not fear, recognition. "You have 10 seconds, the man continued calmly, "before I stop being polite." Every instinct in Ella screamed, because somehow the voice outside sounded just as dangerous as Dajin. And the worst part, Dajin looked genuinely angry, not controlled anymore, lethally angry, which meant the person outside mattered. A lot. Then the stranger spoke again, and Ella's entire world shattered. "Micah Bennett asked me to find his sister." "What?" The word escaped Ella before she could stop it. Dajin did lower the gun, didn't relax, didn't move, which told her everything immediately. Whoever stood outside that door, he was dangerous enough that even Micah's name changed nothing. "Open the door, Dodgen," the man said calmly. "You're making her nervous." "I don't care," Dodgen replied coldly. Because his voice had changed completely now. No softness left, no dry humor, no warmth, only threat. The man outside laughed once quietly, deep, unbothered. "Oh," he murmured, "this is worse than I thought." Silence stretched across the penthouse. Red emergency lights painted shadows across the walls while rain battered softly against the windows. "Who is that?" Ella whispered. Dodgen answered without looking away from the door. "Someone you stay away from." "Does he know Micah?" "Yes." "Then I need to talk to him." "No." The stranger outside spoke again. "Ella, right," her stomach dropped. "You shouldn't trust him." Dodgen's expression darkened dangerously. "I'll kill you before I let you near her." Not dramatic, not exaggerated, certain. And somehow that certainty frightened her more than the threat itself, because she believed him. The stranger laughed softly again. "There he is." Something old and sharp moved underneath the amusement. History. These men had history, bad history. "Leave," Dodgen said. "No," a pause, then calmly, "she deserves the truth." Dodgen's grip tightened on the gun. "And you think you tell it better?" "I think," the man replied smoothly, "you've already lied enough." That hit hard because Ella saw the reaction instantly. Tiny, fast, but real. Dodgen had lied, maybe not directly, but enough. The realization cracked something painful inside her chest. "Dodgen," she said softly. He finally looked at her, and for the first time she saw fear, not fear for himself, fear of losing her trust, which somehow hurt worse. The stranger spoke again through the door. "Ask him what happened in Busan." The room went still. Ella's heart stumbled. Busan, the photograph, Micah. Slowly, very slowly, she looked at Dodgen. "What happened in Busan?" Silence, no answer. Her chest tightened sharply. Dodgen, still nothing. And suddenly the weight between them shifted. Not destroyed, worse. Fractured, because now she could feel the missing pieces. The hidden things underneath every careful answer he'd given her since the moment they met. "Open the door," the stranger said again, quieter this time. "Or she'll hear it from people far crueler than me." Dodgen's eyes never left Ella's face. And softly, almost painfully, he said, "If I open that door, everything changes. Between us. Between all of us." The honesty in his voice made her stomach ache, but so did the silence, because she was exhausted, exhausted of half-truths, of fear, of constantly feeling like everyone else already knew the rules except her. "Open it," she whispered. Dodgen closed his eyes briefly. Tiny movement, still devastating somehow. Then he unlocked the door. The man outside entered slowly. Tall, broad shoulders, black coat damp with rain, not classically handsome like Dodgen, worse. The kind of face that looked carved from old violence and expensive restraint. Sharp eyes landed on Ella instantly, assessing, intelligent, dangerously calm. And suddenly she understood why Dodgen hated him, because this man felt similar, controlled in the exact same terrifying way. The stranger looked back toward Dodgen. "You pointed a gun at me, again. You keep showing up uninvited. Usually for good reasons. Not this time. Especially this time." Then finally, the man held out a hand toward Ella. Roman Valerie. Even his name sounded expensive and morally questionable. Ella did not take the hand. Smartest thing she'd done all night. Roman looked faintly amused. "Good, you're smarter than Micah." Pain flashed across Dodgen's face instantly, gone almost immediately, but Ella saw it. Roman saw her noticing too. Interesting, very interesting. "You knew my brother," Ella said carefully. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then, "Yes." "Where is he?" "That's the question, isn't it?" "Don't do that, don't be cryptic. Where is he?" The question came out too fast, too desperate. Roman's expression shifted slightly. Not pity, something heavier. Dajin stepped forward instantly. Roman, warning, sharp. But Roman ignored him completely. Instead, he looked directly at Ella and said the one sentence capable of destroying the entire night. "The last time I saw your brother," his voice lowered slightly, "he was bleeding in Dajin's arms." The world did not shatter dramatically. No screaming, no music swelling, no cinematic collapse, just silence, heavy enough to crush breathing. Ella stared at Roman like her brain physically refused to process the sentence. "Bleeding Micah, Dajin." And across the room, Dajin said nothing, not one word, and somehow that silence told her everything. Part 1 ends here. Part 2 drops next. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and drop a comment with one word for how you're feeling right now. Just one word. I'll be reading every single one. AfroSeoul Diaries by D.